Hi, and welcome to Mow Magic. That's what I'm going to call this video. I have been testing out the Luba line of products for 𝗟𝗂𝗀 for about a year and a half now, close. And I'm really impressed with that product. So this year I'm going to be testing out the Luba 2X. Last year I tried out the Luba 2, and the Luba 2X has several improvements over the Luba 2, including twice as powerful motors, more cutting blades, a more advanced AI mapping system, and a light to help it navigate at night. So behind me here is the field that the Luba 2X has been cutting since mid-April. So I thank 𝗟𝗂𝗀 for allowing me such a long time to be able to shoot this video and record it and test out this product before providing a review on it. I have put over 1,000 hours on my Luba 2 from last year, and it has performed really incredibly well for me. It is by far my favorite 𝗟𝗂𝗀 product. The 𝗟𝗂𝗲, which I tested out and did a review video on a couple weeks ago, is also great. But the Luba 2, because it has all-wheel drive, can really just power through tough conditions, including this lawn behind me. Now this front lawn, I have roughly a 5-acre property. So I have 3 𝗟𝗂𝗀 robots cutting the property right now. There's a Luba 2 for the back half, a Luba 2X for the front half, and then the 𝗟𝗂𝗲 is cutting inside the pool area during the week. And so here for the Luba 2X, I have it cutting about every 3 days. So it's the perfect time period to, you can see behind me what it started cutting yesterday and what it's needing to cut for the remainder of today and tomorrow. So this is probably about a 2-acre space. It cuts over a period of 2 to 3 days, depending on the orientation of the grass it's cutting, if we've had any rain or weather and that type thing. So 𝗟𝗂𝗀 offers 6 versions of the Luba 2X. There are 3 that are intended to cut high grass from about 2.2 inches to 4 inches, and then 3 that are intended to cut shorter grass from that 1 to 2.2 inches. And among those 3 versions for each 2 sets, there are different robots depending on your property size. So I have the largest. This is the Luba 2X 10,000H for high, and it cuts this property pretty well. I am cutting this field a little higher than I do around the house. I typically cut the house about 2.2, 2.3 inches, the back half of the property, because I'm out there regularly, the dogs are out there regularly, I'm pulling around garden carts and stuff, and I don't want the grass laying down or being easily damaged from traffic. Out here where it gets a lot of sun and it is completely exposed to the sun all day, I cut the grass between 3 and 4 inches. Right now I think it's being cut at about 3 inches, and I will probably elevate that if we start going into a drought. So that's really nice. I can control the height of this robot remotely through the app to any height between 2.2 and 4 inches. So if we're having a particular hot day and it's set to mow, I can bump that up. And if we're not having any rain, that'll be much happier on the grass. You can see it's headed out from its docking station, which is all the way behind the barn on the back side of the property. So these robots work off an RTK system, and this one, 𝗟𝗂𝗀 is providing 4G service for a year on them, which is nice, because out here on the edge of the property, it will work on RTK without needing 4G service, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to control it remotely if you needed to, and you couldn't use the features such as seeing the cameras remotely on the app. So it's getting started early this morning. I think it's probably headed to its new location. I don't hear the blades cut on yet, but we'll take a look at it and I'll continue talking about how great this robot has saved me time over the past year. Cutting this property alone, just with a lawnmower or a tractor, for a single person takes about 4 hours. That is no weed eating, that is no other stuff related to lawn care, that is simply cutting the grass. 4 hours a week of time that I get back every week, which has been invaluable to put back into the garden and other things I want to do. So as I mentioned, I have the 𝗟𝗂𝗀 Luba 2X set up to mow about every 3 days. Okay, it found its spot where it stopped yesterday. It stopped for a minute. It's going to power up the blades and get started cutting. You hear the beeping there, and there it goes. So you can see it missed like this strip of grass because it's there's an obstacle, a tree, so it went past it and then it comes back and cuts it, depending on how it is decided is the best and most efficient mapping area for this period. So one thing I love about these robots is you can make various schedules, but you can also tell it to optimize the cutting path for you, however you want it to cut. And then you can tell it to alternate the cutting path any angle you want. So in my schedule, I have it to cut the most optimal path one time, and then the next path, which is it's doing right now, is to cut a different angle, a different random angle, so to not create lines in the lawn that are indentions where it's regularly traveling over the same location, because these robots have centimeter level accuracy down to cutting around obstacles and where you map it in your lawn. Now the Luba 2X does have advanced mapping capabilities, and it does have the ability to auto map. I was not able to try those features out here because I don't have a good distinguishing property line between mine and my neighbor's property. The only thing I really have is the driveway, but you can see my property kind of runs directly into my neighbor's property. So there's not a good distinguishing line to test out those auto mapping capabilities. One of the improvements of the 2X over the 2 is there is a light that can automatically come on when it gets too dark, and it can use the vision system more accurately at night to avoid obstacles. It does have other sensors on it that allow it to see obstacles, but the vision system's really helpful for avoiding like hoses in the yard. I have some cases where I've left a hose drag out and the Luba will just stop. It won't be able to pass the channel because it detected even a hose laying across its path. It'll go around small obstacles in your lawn as well, and even bigger obstacles, but it's best to map the bigger obstacles with a no-go zone, which is what I have around all of these trees that you see on the property and any other thing that may be there that it just needs to travel around. Now the hardware for the Luba 2X is very similar to the hardware of last year as far as exterior. There's been a lot of little styling changes. The guards on the side are orange now. There's a little more gray on the body, but the improved vision system, the improved mowers, the improved lighting, and the improved number of blades it cuts with are all great improvements. The hardware itself otherwise last year performed incredibly. It has Omni wheels that rotate. Let me pause the robot and we'll take a look over some of its characteristics right quick. So if you needed to stop the robot, there's a big button on top to press it and it will come to a stop and pause the job. The Luba needs to be cleaned, honestly, and it does require regular routine changing, including revising the razor blades under here. You can see I actually need to clean out the deck because it's been kind of wet here and the grass has gotten really long. But you can see the additional razor blades down here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 6 total razor blades on the bottom and a 15.7 inch wide cutting deck. But these wheels here are nice because they're Omni wheels. They can actually do a 360-degree turn in your lawn if you choose to do so. That can be a little damaging on even zero-turn mowers when it's kind of wet and rainy. So I choose to do a 3-point turn in nice tight spaces, which allows the Luba to traverse tight areas more easily than some other robot mowers. There are also shocks down here that allow it to create a very smooth cutting path. And the wheels are very nicely designed to grab the ground real well. And then all the all-wheel drive mowers allow it to traverse up to an 80-degree angle, which is really steep. So this would be a great robot for those of you who may have really steep hills that you don't want to cut. It would do a really nice job on those locations. It's cutting pretty flat here out in the field, but around my house, the Luba 2 has some pretty difficult terrain to traverse up hills, and it does a flawless job. Now I'm going to continue cutting grass, so I'm going to do grass start, so it will start back up here. You give it the 3 tones, and it will just continue on its job here. Now the Luba is capable of cutting wet grass, and it's a little earlier than what I would typically get the robot out. We had rain last night. There may be rain today. And there is a rain sensor on the top of it, so if it detects rain, you can tell it you don't want it to cut during the rain. and I typically don't. You typically don't want your regular mower cutting during the rain because it just gums up the mower deck, and you may have saw that I need to clean out the mower deck on that one as well. Regular maintenance comes with these robots like regular mower. If you're cutting only when it's dry, then the maintenance is pretty low. You need to replace the razor blades that are in the cutting deck about every 100 hours if they recommend. I will say that I probably use them longer than that. And they're probably about to the point where they need to be changed now. I've put a lot of hours on this robot, over around 450 hours this season already. And I think I've changed the razor blades maybe twice. So I try and stretch them a little longer, but it does cut much better if you perform that regular razor blade changing and maintenance. Now here in the United States, we use a system to control these robots called RTK. So there's a home base station I've shown last year, and in the 𝗟𝗂𝗲 video, this Luba 2X is actually sharing a home base station with the 𝗟𝗂𝗲. So if you use the 4G cellular service, you can share a base station, which is nice if you have multiple devices. For some reason, the software doesn't allow you to share a base station just through the RTK signal itself, which I wish was the case, because I would love to be able to just not rely on the 4G or Wi-Fi service to be able to control the robot and have it mow for me. You can see here that the robot is now navigating around this tree here. So I have a no-go zone for all of these trees out here. You can plan out as many no-go zones as you need in your lawn. And then I choose to have it cut twice, 2 laps around each no-go zone. Now mowmotion also provides a 3-year warranty for the Luba 2X. The Luba 2 initially had a 2-year warranty, so a 3-year warranty is definitely a nice upgrade in case something were to go wrong with the robot. But the hardware itself has been pretty solid for me on the Luba 2. Now something I wish they would bring to the Luba 2 series, or the Luba series in general, the standard size, because there is a Luba Mini, which is nice if you have a small property. It's basically a little shrunk down version of the Luba 2X. Is that the battery can be removable. I think that would be great for serviceability. It's the only product in their line right now that doesn't have a removable battery. The 𝗟𝗂𝗲, the 𝗟𝗂𝗲 Mini, and the Luba Mini all have removable batteries. So I'm thinking and expecting that the next version of the Luba will probably have a removable battery too, since they were able to bring those features to some of their mini versions. But I don't know, and I don't have any inside knowledge. That's just kind of an expectation of what I'm seeing based on how they're transitioning some of their other product lines to have removable batteries. So let's talk a little bit about cut time and expectations. As I mentioned, this thing can cut a little faster than last year's Luba 2 as well. So I think it can travel up to 2.6 feet per second. I have mine cut down to 2 feet per second. That's what the rate at the Luba travels at. And I find that it just cuts more evenly and better, especially when the grass is being kept tall back here or up here in the front of the lawn. You could definitely speed that up if you wanted to, and it will probably depend on your grass type, how thick your grass is, when it was last mowed. So the expectations for this device is it's going to run a lot. So most of the time, it's not intended to cut the lawn super quickly. It's intended to take care of something that you don't want to do yourself, or that you just don't have the time to do. So mine cuts from about 9 in the morning. I have mine scheduled to about 9:30 at night. That gives me a little bit of time in the morning for the sun to come out on this field, dry the dew off so I don't have as many issues with maintenance and getting grass out of the mower deck. And then at night it cuts off about 9:30, and that will allow it to finish for the evening before dew sets in on the grass, and again wets the grass and makes mowing a little more difficult and more maintenance for me. Now we'll walk up here and see kind of where I am cutting the grass, where the Luba 2X is taking over from the Luba 2. So the Luba 2X will cut between, from my experience, about 1 hour and 40 minutes to 2 hours on its first charge. That means it's fully charged to 100%. When it comes back, if it's not able to finish the task, and with a property my size, it can't finish the task in one charging cycle, it goes back to the charger at about 15%, travels through a little channel I've created. You can actually see right here, it travels around the back of the property and behind the barn to dock onto the charging deck. And at 15%, it charges back up to 80% to save the battery life and continues mowing. So right here is where I have the Luba 2X starting its mow on the front of the property. You can kind of see here maybe where the Luba 2 cuts because the edges are traversed this way and this way. And then the Luba 2X cuts the entire around 2+ acres this way. For mowers like this, as I mentioned, the hardware is really solid, but it's all in the software. And I like that MAMotion provides a good flexibility of options when you're using mowers like this. Now in the spring, I mentioned in my Yucca review video, these were released with not quite feature parity to last year's Luba. For example, I couldn't cut the perimeter first. There weren't as many like cutting, mowing options. It just kind of did it itself the best that was MAMotion believed, but all of those features that were in last year's version Luba have been brought as of a couple months ago to the Luba 2X. So that makes me really excited. I choose to cut all my perimeters first. I find I put these robots through a lot of trouble around edges and stuff because I want to get as close to my garden beds, or you saw as close to the no-go zones as possible. And the likelihood of them getting stuck on an edge for me is greater than getting stuck in the middle. Like for example, it could get stuck under a limb of this tree if the tree has grown out over the season. I've actually had that happen and had to remap a no-go zone because I got this started earlier in the spring before the trees had really started growing. And these conifers here produce a lot of new growth each spring. And so the wheel just got a little caught up in one of the branches that hang down here. So I remapped that no-go zone and have not had an issue since. So those are nice things that you can go back and modify the edges of any of the no-go zones or the edges of any mowing area that you have in the garden or in your lawn that may need to be tweaked from time to time as things grow, as you put in posts in the lawn or you plant new trees. Now it's starting to sprinkle and we finally have an overcast day here in Ohio. So we'll see if the Luba goes back home when it detects enough water on the rain sensor. I wanted to get out here and shoot this video because it is a nice overcast day today, but also to show you how the rain works here, how the rain system works. So we're going to take a look and see how long this takes to detect whether it's raining or not, and then I'll check back in a moment. So there are two little contact sensors in front of the buttons there to indicate when there's water. It's a little inset area, so when water pools up there, it notices that it's wet and raining and it stops and goes back to the mowing deck or the mowing charging area. You can turn that feature off. I like it because I don't want it to mow during the rain. It makes it just more difficult on the device and any mower that you're mowing on for maintenance purposes. But it's a nice feature. My only real complaint about that feature is, and I made this complaint last year, is it's not smart enough to know when the grass has dried off so it can come back out to mow. You have to manually start it back again. So I wish that's something they could work on. You heard the mowers cut off. It detected that it was full of rain. So it's going to go back to the charging deck and we'll follow it back there. I'll get a little wet, but this is a real life tutorial. While we're following it back, it's just now passing out of the mowing zone into its channel. You can see that this channel here has been a little worn down over the spring and summer because the MAMotion travels the same path back to the mowing deck or the charging deck every time it needs to come out and recharge. I wish MAMotion would come up with a method for us to use multiple channels or to kind of record or save an area and randomize that path so it didn't kind of imprint as much in the grass. The channels are also nice because they allow like people who have smaller properties to travel over concrete or from the front to the backyard through open gates and that type thing. But it would be nice if there were more options for the channels, because if it detects an obstacle in the path while it's traveling back to the charging deck, it shuts down. It says it can't get back to the charging deck and then you're left without a finished task, and the mower may go dead if it's returning to the charging deck on a low battery. Now, that's not that much of a problem because you can fix that issue, but it's just kind of a, if I left a hose out and it decides it can't get through the channel because I have the vision obstacle detection turned on, that's just more of a pain for me. It was my fault it happened, but sometimes those things happen, and it would be nice if we could choose to not avoid obstacles in the path, the channel path specifically, just a little more granularity over how those channel paths are traversed. But it would also, I think, be great if we could record or map an area that we would like it to travel through, because in a property my size, it would be nice if I could record this entire back area and have it pick a random path back to the charging zone, which would allow it to not make these imprints in the grass over time. Just much more effective, I think. But we'll see if those features come in a future software update. But you can see how far the 𝗟𝗂𝗋𝗀 has to come to travel. When it reaches about 15%, as I mentioned, the RTK system is over there on the back of the deck. I'll get a close-up for this video of how that looks mounted. The RTK system needs to have open view of the sky, and it uses GPS along with the GPS in the Luba to get down to that centimeter level accuracy. And back here in the back is where the Luba 2 cuts for most of the season as well. So if you have a big property, the Luba 2 or the RTK system is nice because it will transmit for like up to several miles. But realistically, I don't know that you would be having the RTK that far away from the Luba. My property is a nice indicator of how far away that RTK system will work. But I am using the RTK system, in this case, using the 4G service on the Luba because I want to be able to see its status remotely. Next year, I'm not sure. I'm sure they will come out with a yearly fee for the 4G service, or I'm hoping to get Wi-Fi on my entire property, and then you can utilize the remote control from Wi-Fi as well. So like the 𝗟𝗂𝗲, I run off Wi-Fi in the backyard instead of the 4G service, but the Luba is run off 4G, and they both use the internet to communicate their GPS coordinates. So here's where I have the docking stations for the Luba 2, which is the old version here, and the Luba 2X. You can see the little styling differences here. The Luba 2 was all white, and the Luba 2X has the orange with the darker gray to black tones on the bottom. Otherwise, the vision system and the internal upgrades are all hidden. So the exterior is pretty similar hardware-wise. The docking system works pretty well, but if you watch my 𝗟𝗂𝗲 review video from a few weeks ago, I think the docking system could be improved to that, similar to the 𝗟𝗂𝗲, where the charging points move and are able to better align. So that's it. You can see it starting to charge. It will finish charging, and because it's raining, it will not continue working until I tell it to come out and when I think the grass is dry. So those are all kind of improvements that I've mentioned in my videos last year and this year. I kind of wish the Luba would integrate with some third-party services and smart home services to kind of better understand when the grass is maybe dry and it can continue mowing, or at least maybe give an option that when it's not detecting a wet sensor anymore, that it would continue mowing. I have a Tempest weather station, so it also can detect when it is raining, so that would be nice as well. If I wanted to say 3 hours after the Tempest stops detecting rain, I want you to go out and mow if it's so many degrees, and there's all sorts of like calculations you could do to determine, you know, if the grass is dried off in the sun. So just a little feature integration with other services would be nice as 𝗟𝗂𝗋𝗀 continues to develop its products and hardware. Thank you all for joining me in this review video. This has been a fun one. I really enjoy 𝗟𝗂𝗋𝗀's products. They're really well built and they perform pretty great for me. There's some hiccups here and there as there's like limbs fall in the yard or something like that. But otherwise, they've performed pretty great for about 1.5 years now. Thank y'all for joining, and remember, be a light. Take care. Bye.